Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heal and Restore podcast with your host and the hostess with the mostest, Randy and Cathy.
Hey, everybody. Happy December. Here we are in December. We hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I know we did. It was a great 3-4 days spending with our kids.
Yeah.
Had all the grandkids together, and Mammy got to do her thing. So I was excited.
Mammy was a happy camper this last year.
My heart is full.
Yeah, her heart is full. Spent a lot of time with the grandkids, playing cards, painting, hiking. They did the 1,000 steps over in Verado.
Is it 1,000 steps?
I think that's what it is.
Oh,
yeah,
well, I did 2,000 because I went up and I went down.
Don't like counts going on.
Oh,
sorry. I mean, no, you can count them both. I mean,
I exercise. Let's put it that way. Worked off of that Thanksgiving dinner. So, anyways, I just want to cover a couple of house cleaning items because we are excited to announce, and I know it's been out there for a couple weeks now, but we have our book out and published. It's called Renewing Bonds, and it's the 7 steps to restoring your relationship. You can find this on Amazon. But if you go to our website, healandrestorecounseling.com, you can sign up to receive a PDF copy of the book at no cost.
At no cost.
So either go to Amazon and purchase it, or you can go and get a PDF copy of the book and let us know.
They've got to fill out the email. They got to send us a request for it.
Yes, definitely. So, but yeah, we would love to share that. And if you find the book that it's helpful, we would love for you to share it with others as well.
And I think I believe I put it on there. There's a little teaser, a little bit of the book on there. That's a teaser. They can go to the more, I should say, book teaser.
Good. Okay, we'll see.
Just a couple pages or so of the first chapter.
Set to draw them in.
To draw them in,
to draw them in.
We got to try everything. We got to do everything.
Yeah.
We got to do everything.
We got to do everything. So, we put it out there about a month ago, asking our listeners and some friends that we're close to, we would like to do a Q&A podcast. And as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we had an overwhelming amount of questions that were asked. And so they're categorized. And so today we're going to talk about we're going to help answer one of those questions. And so our Q&A this week is going to be about what, honey?
It's going to be, what is recovery?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And
a lot of people get confused.
They hear the word recovery.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, especially within a church setting, and all they can think of is drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, I think most all settings think that way.
Right. And if you go to celebrate recovery, or that's part of your church, or any kind of recovery, it's 2/3 other things and 1/3 alcohol and drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the majority of people that are struggling with something other than drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, because drugs and alcohol are just a symptom of a much deeper underlying issue that needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's great.
And Gabor Mate gives a great definition of recovery. And it's so what does it mean to recover something?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we're doing. And what it means is to regain something we have lost.
I love that.
Okay.
That just opens my mind.
It means to find again.
Yeah.
We're going to find something again.
Something
so then what is it that people find when they enter into the world of recovery? It's a great question to think about, because that's the reality of what we're doing, is that we're recovering something we've lost.
Right.
And that generally is the person that God created us to be.
Right.
We are recovering ourself, our true self, the self that God created us to be.
Right. So we're not going to just talk about recovery of drugs and alcohol. There are so many, based upon what you just said, there are so many categories of recovery. And so we're going to just dive into this. I'm just going to read a little description about what is recovery, and then we're going to get into
another description of what is recovery.
Yeah, another description over and above what you just shared. And then we're going to get into the different types of recovery that are involved here. So, I'm just going to start out with recovery. What is recovery? Recovery is the process of healing and returning to a state of well-being after experiencing significant challenge, a setback, or disruption. And that's very similar to what you just said, getting back what we've lost. It can apply to a wide range of situations. It can be physical, emotional, psychological, and social aspects of life. But it's often associated with restoration of health.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing we're taking back. But we can also refer to personal growth. I love that part too about recovery. A lot of people don't understand or don't relate to drugs and alcohol, but personal growth is something they can relate to. And so it's rebuilding a sense of stability and strength after difficult experiences.
And a lot of people will cop out using, well, it's just the way I was born. It's who I am, and it's too bad if you don't like it. But
Right.
well, that I had that attitude for a while. It doesn't work very well in
didn't last
real
long.
life. No, I mean, you develop a lot of enemies that you don't realize you develop.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, God didn't create us to be smart Alex, sarcastic, selfish knuckleheads.
No.
That's not what he created
No,
us to
those
be.
are all
No.
symptoms also of an underlying condition.
Yeah,
You know, and the way we act, the way we show up. So
And that's the one thing you and I do in our work with people is what is the root of that
yeah.
behavior?
And we've got to look at the root, and that doesn't matter what you're trying to recover.
No.
There's a root to something. So let's just jump into some of these different
Yeah.
different areas of recovery. And the first one is a physical recovery. You know, it refers to the process of regaining our health and function after an illness, injury, surgery, physical strain. Physical recovery often involves just resting, rehabilitation, exercise, any type of medical treatment that's going to help restore us to our strength and our mobility. Something that you know very well.
It seems like right now my whole life is just every day is a life of recovery from
physical
recovery. A lot of, being in construction for 40 years, a masonry contractor, sports, dangerous sports, just beat my body up. And, it caught up to me. Unfortunately, it caught up to me.
Yeah, they say that happens, and I never thought it did.
Yeah, it happens. My neck, my back, now my hand. But you have two choices in life.
Mhm.
You can sit on your keister and do nothing and just whine about it and take pain meds or do whatever you got to do to get through the day, or you can work on recovery. And it's the one thing I have found out in the since 2006, whenever it was, we started dealing with all this stuff, is that your body's very resilient.
Yeah,
and
that's so true.
Sometimes you got to push yourself, but your body
will
recover.
Yeah.
If the muscle memory kicks in fairly quick.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So physical recovery.
Absolutely.
Been there, done that, right?
Right. You can pretty much recover physically from almost anything if you put your mind to it.
Right. Mind and it's about being open-minded and willing.
Open-minded, willing. And you might have some limitations that you didn't have before, but you don't have to stop.
No, not at all. And then the next recovery area, this is a big one. It's emotional and psychological recovery. You know, when we're in emotional recovery, it involves us healing from emotional distresses, trauma, and loss. Those are huge. And it can also be recovering from experiences like grief, depression, anxiety, or abuse. Psychological recovery focuses on restoring mental health, and we're going to talk about mental health in one of our Q&As. Eventually we'll get there with all this information, but we have to rebuild our self-esteem. We have to find a balance through whether it's through therapy, self-care, or support system.
I think it's through all three of those, to be honest with you.
I think they all benefit you.
It's as most of you know, I'm a survivor, a thriving survivor of both emotional, physical, spiritual, and sexual abuse. And it takes a long time.
It's a lifelong process.
It's a lifelong process. Every day I have to make choices to either do right or do wrong, and I don't want to make the choices to do wrong. My life has gotten so much better. It's not perfect, but the psychological recovery from the trauma that happened to me was more intense than I thought it was going to be. I had a meditation one time where God actually was speaking to me, and he says, Randy, the scarring is deeper than you'll ever imagine, and the damage is incomprehensible. And that is such a true statement. The damage is incomprehensible to those that don't understand and can't even believe it happened. But even to myself, I was working with a lot of survivors on this, right? It's incomprehensible what parents do to their kids.
Well, and I was just going to add to that. I work with a lot of women and couples. We work with couples together, but I work individually with some women. And, the emotional and psychological recovery process is lifelong.
Yeah.
I'm working with somebody now who's struggling because a certain situation came back into her life. And so now it's like bringing back all these things. And I just got done saying, all of these things are just lying below the surface.
Yeah.
And as soon as we are triggered or in an environment where the emotional pain comes from, it just kind of wants to boil back up. And so it's a constant reminder that we're closer to the old behaviors, thoughts, emotions than we are further away, and they'll come back very quickly.
Come back very quickly,
Yeah.
and that's where the importance of a good support system or community
Yeah.
would be a better word for that support system.
Yeah.
Community. This person reached out to Cathy. She knew
twice
what to
today
do.
already, and
Right.
that's just those are the things that we have to do when we're trying to take back things that were lost.
Right, because it's like I've done all this hard work.
Yeah.
Right, and everything's been good for so long, and then all of a sudden people come back into my life for a day, a couple of days, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden all my trauma is like back in my head again.
Everything comes up.
So that's why it's important to have a mentor.
Yeah.
Right, a coach like Cathy and I, that you can call us at any time and explain to us what's going on and how you're feeling, so we can talk you through the process. It's okay. Recovery, man, it is so important. It is a lifelong deal. You could go 5 years without an issue, everything going smooth and fine.
Right. Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, you get blindsided by something you forgot about a long time ago.
Absolutely.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
More will be revealed, they say. And we feel that God's only going to reveal to you so much at one time.
Right.
He's not going to overload you
No,
with
no,
bad
that's so true. And you know what? You don't know when it's going to come. So that's why it's so important to have that community.
Absolutely,
of people.
100%.
And then this next one, this is the one that's most common. This is the one that everybody thinks about when they hear recovery, and that's addiction recovery.
Right.
So it's in the context of substance abuse or behavioral addiction. Recovery involves a process of overcoming the dependency or substances of harm or harmful behaviors. It typically includes treatment, therapy, building new coping mechanisms, and support groups. There's that word again, support, or professionals that achieve sobriety and long-term well-being. And that's something you know very, very well.
Right.
Your journey for your addiction recovery is still ongoing, and it's coming up on 19 years. And it'll be that way always. But I think the beauty that we get today in that is the fact that we're helping other people that keeps us connection.
So I got a question for you, Kat. What has my recovery done for you in our relationship?
That's a great question, because like a lot of people don't think about the spouse. First of all, it's a huge awareness. It's an awareness, number one, that it does exist and it can happen to anybody.
No
Nobody's, doesn't discriminate. Nobody's exempt. It's brought me to an awareness of there's compassion, there's understanding, there's empathy, but it's also really hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. At the very beginning of your journey, I struggled quite a bit with the fact that every time we'd be in a conversation, your phone would ring and you would stop and answer it. Today, I'm grateful for that. At the beginning, it was very hard to understand what that was like, but I think it's brought back, I know it's brought back the man that I married. That's for sure.
Well, Cathy used to say when we speak to different groups that all I wanted was a Randy I married back.
Right. And I got that and so much more. Yeah. No, so it's actually shaped our family as a family unit, whether it's our kids and our grandkids. I mean, our grandkids, get me, our grandkids will never see you.
Drunk.
Pray to God. Yeah, I said that.
Let's just say it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's a lot. And so that's breaking that generational curse of what trauma can do and where it leads.
Our grandkids respect and love us very much, as our children do today.
Yeah. And so it's brought our family a new awareness of life and how to live life in a.
What's it done for our marriage?
Well, you tell me.
Oh, you tell me.
I just told you what it said. It's brought back my husband. That's the biggest thing. I mean, all the other stuff is the benefits of having a healthy, sober husband.
Yeah, it's done a lot for our relationship. We've become a lot closer.
Yeah.
It's over time. What you have to understand about recovery is that people go, "Well, I've been in recovery for 6 months and my wife is still me." Well, you got to keep doing it.
You got to keep doing it.
I have to make a choice every morning.
Well, and with that being said, it took me a couple years to jump on the recovery bus, so it's not going to be a 6 month, 1 year, 2 year, whatever. It takes what it takes for a family to get involved.
Absolutely. But it is a family thing,
Yeah,
honestly.
it really does. It affects the entire family.
When we talk about our family benefits from watching Cathy and I. And we see it in our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? We still have our issues, but we all,
as a whole, as
a unit, none of us are judgmental about each other. We love each other. Yeah, we have our sniffs, but hey, that's just life.
No, yeah, absolutely. This next one, of course, is another one that you are all so familiar with, and that's trauma recovery.
Yeah.
You're recovering from trauma. It refers to healing from experiences that cause those deep and psychological harm that we talked about earlier. That could be abuse, violence, natural disasters. And people don't realize, like, natural disasters, that is trauma. Yes. I mean, I think about these people that went through these hurricanes this season. They've got some trauma recovery to work on. It involves acknowledging and processing the traumatic experiences.
And no, it's not trauma like going to war, right? And
that's first of
all, Cathy and I, we don't diagnose anybody with PTSD. That's going to be done by a professional. We want to make that very clear right off the bat. We'll talk more about this in our session with mental health, but trauma can be, for example, my stepbrother back in the 70s, he just got back from Vietnam. He was a Vietnam War veteran. They were at the Winter Nationals in Pomona, a big drag race, and a car blew up. An engine blew. And when that engine blew, he took himself, my stepsister, my sister-in-law, my stepsister, my stepbrother, and he dove on top of all of them and covered them up. Yeah. It took them right back to Vietnam.
Yeah. So that's a traumatic experience.
Right. Car accidents could be a traumatic experience. A dog dying could be a traumatic experience.
A loss of a family member.
Loss of a family member. That's all different types of trauma that we don't want to minimize. Okay. But
what we have to do is we have to acknowledge it.
They have to acknowledge it.
Process it. We have to, and then over time we build resilience and we regain a sense of safety and control. But over time, again, it's not one of those things that just happens simultaneously or 6 months. It could be a lifetime of working on your trauma recovery, which you have done.
Trauma is trauma.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody might have trauma, or a lot of people might have trauma of different types, but it's going to affect everybody the same, but maybe a little bit different. Right. Gab Armitage says trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you.
Yeah. Gab Armitage, he's been on my Instagram feed lately, and boy, has he been feeding us some good stuff.
He's got a couple great books. He's taught me a lot. So
yeah. And then the next one, we've got just a couple left here. We've got recovery in relationships. People don't realize we have to recover sometimes some of those relationships.
Yeah.
It can refer to the process of healing and rebuilding after conflict, betrayal, hardship. Families that go through hardship, I mean, financial hardship, emotional hardship, those things we have to build back that relationship.
Well, what about you and I?
Well, I haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten to that one. Just give me a minute.
Well, that's recovering relationships.
No, I know, but I'm not finished.
Oh, okay.
You're jumping ahead here.
Well, I didn't know you were going to say it, or you wanted me to say it.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okie dokie, jalapenoki.
He gets so excited because he's so proud of this betrayal recovery, and I am too, honestly. So we'll just jump right into it, honey, since you were right there.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge, and a lot of people don't recover from this. But and here's what we've had to do to get to that recovery process is that we've had to improve our communication.
And what are we talking about though? It's the affair I had in 2000.
The betrayal. That's what I said. The betrayal in our relationship. So we had to rebuild communication. We had to rebuild trust. And we had to find ways to reconnect emotionally and physically.
Yes.
And all of those things took some time as well.
Absolutely.
And they're still in process.
Yeah.
It's not something that we just overcome because we've done it once or twice. It's ongoing.
In the trust and the intimacy and all that comes back with the consistency of change
Yes.
in behavior and attitudes
Over
over
time.
time for a consistent amount of time.
Right.
It just can't be for a month and then you're
No.
back to your old ways.
And we're talking 20 years that the betrayal
Yes,
happened.
yeah.
And even today, we're still
And
we're still in process.
we're still in process, but it's not like
No,
it's not like we have to stress over it or
no,
really work
it's
hard
just
at it. It's
being
coming
mindful.
natural.
Yeah, it's just being mindful
Yeah.
that, you know, that it exists. And we still, it's not like we ignore it.
Well, no, and it's
It's
a lot of the biblical principles that, you know, that we both
right.
turn to too.
Yeah. No, and we just, you know, we know that it was there. I sometimes will just talk about it out of
Yeah.
the ability to just be able to express
Yeah.
ourselves. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. Sometimes we tell
Oh,
stories.
he's
but
got a really funny
I've
story,
got
but
some
we
good
won't go into
stories.
it.
No,
Hey,
but
it's a
you know,
good story.
the stories are the reminders of where we were
Yeah.
and where we are today. So I think that's what's important. Not to kind of go back into the
No,
dark stuff,
no,
but
no,
just to
no.
realize
Kathy
that
has not once thrown that
no,
affair in my
it's
face.
just
No.
to stretch ourselves and grow ourselves and see the recovery journey.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we're going to talk about here is social and community recovery. You know, recovery can apply to communities or societies after natural disasters, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Economic hardships. You know, we're all kind of in that economic hardship right now with the way that the world has been. And social upheaval. We've all kind of been through that for different reasons, not all one reason or another, but it really involves rebuilding of the infrastructure, restoring social connections, and addressing the collective needs of the community to recover its well-being. And you know, we've all experienced that in our lifetime at some point or another. And I don't think I've never really looked at it as a social or community recovery. It's just like, okay, well, this is what's going on. But we've experienced it in our lifetime.
And we'll go into this one when we talk about church and family on a later podcast, but I've experienced two very bad experiences. Well, actually three, but two recently with churches.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that's a
the last
community
one,
of recovery.
Yeah, the first one didn't take me that long. The second one is taking me over a year to get over.
But that over that year has been a good year.
It's been a really good year
yeah,
for us. Yes.
Yeah. So,
we'll talk
but yeah,
about
I
that
think we
later.
just don't realize that, you know, social and community recovery, how it affects us and how we do have to recover over some of those
We have
situations.
to take whatever time it takes to grieve the loss, and there's a lot that goes into it.
Right. So and rebuild the finances after
finances.
you know, financial losses too. So we want to talk a little bit before we close this out as we wrap it up, the key principles of recovery, because there are some principles, and it doesn't matter which of those areas of recovery that you're working on. These principles apply to all of them.
And when we get into this, remember that your community of people that you want to develop in recovery, how they earn the right to hear your story, number one, right? Because they can't all be trusted. So you have to be very careful and make sure that you're with a good bunch of people that you can really trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like-minded and on the same path, not one foot in, not one foot out, but both feet in.
Right, right. So some key principles of recovery is time and patience.
Yep,
That's the number one
100%.
key. It takes time. Recovery is not always quick. It's a gradual process.
Yep.
Requires time and patience, not only within yourself, but within others, especially if it's relationship recovery. Realizing that when you are recovering from a bad relationship, that might just be you, but other times it might be others as well. Like for us, we had to recover on that. So it took time and it took patience.
Both of us had work to do.
Yeah, we both had work to do. The other one, which you just started to talk about, was your support system.
Yeah.
You know, making sure that you have a supportive relationship environments is crucial in recovery.
Right.
It can include friends. It might include family, therapists, support groups, community networks, whatever it is. It's just really going to be important that you have the right support system.
My suggestion for that support system is you want a collective amount of people that are like-minded, but we're going to suggest that you find one very strong coach or mentor, however you want to look at that's the one that you can fight in your deepest, darkest secrets in. And again, just like I said earlier, they have to earn your trust.
Well, I think they can earn your trust if they've experienced some of the same things you've experienced as well.
Exactly.
So that's going to be a key.
That's the biggest thing.
As that. And then the other one of the other keys is self-care and personal responsibility. I
Yeah.
mean, recovery often requires taking active steps towards the healing, which could involve the self-care, or which should involve
It shouldn't
self-care,
involve self-care.
therapy, lifestyle changes, and treatment.
Absolutely.
You know, we have to take action on our own recovery. It's not going to happen overnight. We have to be able to walk it out.
Well, real quick on that, Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to the ways of the world, step 1, but be transformed, step 2, by the renewing of your mind, step 3.
Right.
You cannot do transformation and renewing of the mind if you're still conforming to the ways of the world and you're still hanging with the people that you used to hang with, going to bars, partying, and all that.
Or just being in relationships that are not healthy
that
for
are
you.
not healthy
If you
for
keep
you.
cycling back into that, you know, the traumatic experiences, you know, those types of things are a little different when it comes to that.
Yeah.
You're not going to cycle back into those, but you do have to take care of yourself.
You do, and I tell you what, that physical care is probably going to be one of the most critical things you can do in recovery, because the amount of feel-good endorphins that are released in your brain when you work out, when you walk, when you go to the gym, when you ride a bike, whatever that is,
The physical activity.
You've got to find some physical activity and something that's going to be peace into your world. Even if it's only for 30 minutes, it doesn't matter. Even if you only get 30 seconds of relief at first, you got to keep doing that.
Yeah, 10 minutes sometimes
10 minutes
is all it
sometimes,
takes. Yeah.
whatever it takes.
Like over the weekend, some of the grandkids were having little meltdowns. And I'm like, last night I had to take one of them. I said, let's go for a walk. We went for a walk, came back, and the rest of the evening was fine.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much to get your mind in the right place.
No, you don't have to yell and scream at your kids. Like Cathy said, you just take them for a walk, say, hey man, what's going on? And you just have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
That's all they want.
Yeah, they just need to break away.
Just like that's all we want.
Yeah.
It's just somebody to hear us, right?
Yeah, exactly, to validate us. So, and then the final key that we want to talk about here as we close out is the resilience and growth. You know, recovery can lead to personal growth, self-discovery, and an increased resilience.
Absolutely.
Where individuals learn to cope with adversity in healthier ways. And that is one thing that recovery has helped me. I feel like there's been a lot of personal growth within myself, but it's also, I just feel healthier overall. When my mind is clear, when my physical being is clear, I just feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important, is to look at the things. And sometimes when I'm talking to other women, I can say, well, just stop doing that, and I realize it's not that easy. It is a process.
But it's an easy thing to say.
It's an easy thing to say, but we have to hear that. I think sometimes we need to know that it's okay. You just, come on, let's get through this.
My mentor would say, stop it, Randy. Just stop it.
Yeah.
So
no, and the one thing that, as we close this out with too, I just want to remind people that it's not always a linear process. You're going to have setbacks, you're going to have challenges in this, but it's about finding ways that you can adapt, heal, and eventually move forward to a healthier and more empowered way. I
want to go back to the growth, because one of the things, the couple things that I had, in your growth, right? That's emotional growth, spiritual growth. Okay. Is that number one, my mentor told me, Randy, you got to walk away from every conversation, leaving the other person's integrity intact, right? And that means no matter what that person has said or done to us, called us, whatever, we just simply say, you know what, this conversation is going to end. I don't allow anybody to talk to me this way. When we come back and you can talk to me as an adult, then we will consider, we'll resume the conversation. Right?
Yeah, no, that's good.
And also, you learn to choose your battles.
Yeah.
That is growth. You don't have to always say what's on your mind. You don't always have to enter into the battle. Sometimes it's better just to let things go the way they are. And they're going to walk away and come back. Yeah, come back. It'll all work out in the long run. So,
and sometimes we don't have to say anything.
No, exactly. Just say them. Your opinion's your opinion, mine's mine. And it's like, oftentimes I think to myself, I never thought about it that way. Maybe I'm gonna give that a thought.
Yeah, no,
that's all I'm gonna do. And I walk away. That way we both win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, that's good. So, I just kind of, as a recap, I'll just remind you that there's physical recovery, emotional and psychological recovery, addiction recovery, trauma recovery, relationships recovery, and social community recovery. And so we're all going to have something in our life that we have to recover from.
And I want to say probably 9 times out of 10, trauma and addiction recovery go hand in hand.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I want to point that out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that, but
There's always something deeper
right.
under the addiction
Yeah,
recovery.
absolutely.
So
100%.
definitely, well, in all of these, we
Right.
can all look at that. So that's where self-growth comes into play.
Right.
When we're ready to self-reflect, that's where the growth happens.
Right.
So, and not everybody's ready at the same time.
No.
And that's okay too. But when you're ready, you know what? When they're ready, they can contact us.
Yeah,
At healandrestorecounseling.com, check out our website and we'll be happy to sit down. I do want to, as we close this out too, talk about our 45-minute, no cost, freebie DB, whatever you want to call it, discovery session.
Right.
We're still available to do that. Gives us an opportunity to sit down, hear you out, hear what your needs and desires are for your own journey, and make sure that we're a right fit. There's nothing worse than getting into where you're having to open your heart and spill everything out if you're not comfortable.
Right.
And we want you to be comfortable.
We want you to be comfortable.
We like to approach people as what you see is what you get, because we're not going to sugarcoat ourselves. We're not going to sugarcoat the situation or circumstances. We want to be honest and truthful, because we know that that's what it took us to get to where we are today.
We want to meet you where you're at with no judgment, no
Absolutely.
condemnation.
Right. Yeah. So if you're interested,
a lot of support.
Yeah, if you're interested in that discovery session, please reach out to us through healandrestorecounseling.com.
Yep.
You can leave your information there and we'll contact you and set up. If you're local to us, we can do it in person. If you're anywhere else in the country, the world, we can set it up through Zoom.
Yep.
And we do have clients on Zoom.
Yep.
And it has worked. So it's, we're available to you. So definitely reach out to us.
And then I want to close out with one thing. The holiday seasons are upon us, and they can be stressful at times. So practice these three principles. It's better to understand than to be understood. It's better to comfort than to be comforted. And it's better to love than to be loved.
I love that.
So when things get stressful, right? You see your spouse getting uptight, and there's a lot of things that are your kids. There's a lot of things that could bring up some stuff over the holidays. Practice those three principles, and I guarantee you, I promise you, it'll come back to you 100-fold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Good stuff.
Good. All right. So remember this: if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does.
Cathy does.
But more importantly, God does. Be blessed, everybody. Have a fabulous week.
See you soon.